Good morning and welcome to the very start of Hadrian's Wall, and just behind the railings here is Segedunum, which is the Roman fort right at the very eastern end of Hadrian's Wall itself. And just as I pass here, look, there's a little bit of a wall here, and if I run up onto the bank, they've marked out the very edge of all the buildings. It's really quite cool. So it was garrisoned for about 300 years, from 122 AD up to about 400 AD. And as I say, it marks the very start of Hadrian's Wall Path, which is a national trail, and it runs for 84 miles in that direction, all the way to Bowness on Solway in Cumbria. So on the very edge of Segedunum Roman Fort is a reconstructed Roman bathhouse, I think this is. What's really impressive is that it's got that lovely whitewash, and I think all Roman buildings or posh ones had that amazing whitewash to them. It's just a shame that actually we can't go in. I had a look online and I think it says the museum's actually closed at the moment, which is a bit of a bummer, but that is very cool. We've just taken this tiny little detour off the trail to come and have a look at these awesome Roman baths, and the reconstructed one is just up there, the white building you can see up here. They haven't reconstructed it in the same place. This is where the original bathhouse would have been, quite close to the River Tyne, just over there. So far, a lot of the trail has actually just been this sort of tarmac path, which I think looks like it would have been an old tram line or an old railway line. I haven't found any information about it, but there's a few traces of sort of old railway lines and stuff like that along the edge. And considering we're in the city centre pretty much, it's been quite green. Look at this. A nice kind of meadow area, lots of trees. There's been lots and lots of bird life, which is really nice, but a constant rumble of industrial units on both sides. And I think shortly, hopefully, we're going to be heading along the river. thankfully we got a little bit of a break in the weather, and we took a little detour off to see the Norman Castle, which is Grade 1 listed and dates to 1177 and built of this awesome kind of sandstone. It's lovely. What's cool is now that I've got a wonderful view looking right down back into the city of Newcastle, and all of these bridges just jutting out across the River Tyne, and most of these are actually listed, and one of them, which I think is this, not the blue one right near me, but the one behind that, is Grade 1 listed, and a lot of them date to the Industrial Revolution. Really incredible to see so many bridges going across the river. So let's talk a little bit about the history of Hadrian's Wall. So we know it was built, or it started in 122 AD by Emperor Hadrian, and it was designed to stop sort of the marauding Scots from the north and sort of control this area and the very edge of the Roman frontier. And then about 20 years later, they actually tried to push further north and then built the Antonine Wall, which is north of Glasgow. And I think it's only about 50 or 60 miles long. So that one was built from turf with a wooden palisade, and that one couldn't keep back the Scots, so they actually fell back to where Hadrian's Wall is, and that remained the northern frontier of the Roman Empire from then on. Quick stop for a lunch break.
And plaster break.
Plastering up the feet. Got some rubbing feet at the moment.
I don't know why, because they never rub, but today they are.
Today they are. Sun is out. We just had about an hour of solid rain, and now it's lovely. Sorry? We're just in the tiny village of Leamington, which is on the edge of the city of Newcastle. And there's this awesome building over here, and this is called Leamington Cone, which dates to 1787 and is Grade 2 star listed. And it was actually built as part of the Northumberland Glass Works. So I think it might have been some kind of massive chimney or something like that. So we're just down at Tyne Riverside Country Park, and although we saw quite a lot of people a few minutes ago, it's actually nice and empty now, and there are so many birds about. It's lovely, and some fantastic views across the river as well. This actually was a battle site during the Napoleonic War, and there's a little marker on the map that says 1640 and a couple of crossed swords, which means that's the location of a battle site. And there's actually some information boards there as well if anyone's interested, and you can have a read about the history. But now we're following the river, and that's going to take us through some countryside now up to Heddon on the Wall, and that is the end of the first day along the Hadrian's Wall path. We're only about a mile or so from Heddon on the Wall now, and there's a little sting just at the end of this day because you're on the flat for miles and miles, like 14 miles I think, and then the last mile is all uphill, and you've got about 100 meters, which is like 330 feet to go up, and we're now on our way up there through the woods. Golf course on either side, so just be careful. It's just really nice to finally be out in the countryside. I think the last 5 miles or so has been far more rural than the first part. It's probably the most urban walk I've ever done in my life. But all reports say it's the worst section of the entire walk. And if that's the worst bit, then I am very excited about the rest. Such cracking views just as we enter Heddon. Look across to those hills over there. Absolutely beautiful. So we've just arrived at Heddon in the Wall and taken this little detour to come and touch this awesome section of Hadrian's Wall. And this is called the Broad Wall, and that is because this section, well, the entire of Hadrian's Wall was supposed to be about 3 meters thick, but then to save time and resources, they actually made it a bit thinner further down. But this is the longest surviving section of Broad Wall along the entire Hadrian's Wall. And it's just amazing to think that this is 1,900 years old, and there's just, I can touch it, it's right here, and this went across the entire country. It's so exciting to see an original part of the wall. We haven't seen anything since the Roman fort right at the start, because obviously we've been following the river, but from here on it is just following the wall all the way to the Cumbrian Coast. Good morning and welcome back to the Hadrian's Wall path, and this is day 2 now, and I've just left heading on the wall. It's about a mile behind me, and I've just crossed, this is at the A69 I think, massive dual carriageway, constant rumble of noise over in that direction, but thankfully underfoot it is a lot nicer than, I think we did about 13 miles of tarmac yesterday before we even got onto a normal footpath. But so far, absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous views across the valley on the left, and I can see the earthworks of the vallum, which was a massive bank and ditch behind the wall, and it was actually built after the wall was completed, and they know that because it goes around some of the forts and things like that that were actually on the wall. And basically, hopefully on this section we're going to see the vallum quite a lot. And it ran about, I'd say 80 metres or so over there along the field boundary towards those trees, and I know later on there is a really well preserved section, so that'll be really interesting to see. Today I'm going to be ending, I think it's at Chollersford, which is about 15 miles or so. Another long day, but at least it's a footpath underfoot and not tarmac, but the wind is a lot stronger today. So we've just arrived at the Roman fort at Rochester called Vindabala, and it is just a series of earthworks, that's all that's left. But you've got this clear platform, and the footpath actually goes just along its southern edge, and there's a lovely little information board as well, just giving some history on it. And there were some excavations done in the late 19th century, and there's some details on sort of the artefacts that they found there. But what's really impressive is that this fort is one of 16 along the entire length of Hadrian's Wall, and the wall itself was literally along that line of bushes you can see. That's where the current military road is. I say military road, that's the B road that we now use. It was the military road during the time of the Roman Empire, and then there was another half of the fort that went out north of the wall, and awesome sort of gates and stuff that controlled passage of people and goods. Got lots more forts and mile castles and turrets to see, but this is the first fort we've actually seen since, I think, the very start of the walk. So we recently crossed over the B road to get to the north side of Hadrian's Wall, and this hedge line here actually marks the original line of the wall. But what's quite amazing is the path follows the very bottom of the ditch that was just north of the wall itself, and this would have been potentially filled with sticks, sharp sticks and things like that, to stop people being able to charge up at the wall, and then the wall would have been about 3 meters up here. So it's really quite amazing, like you can just walk along here and not even realize you're walking within an earthwork. But if I look ahead as well, the bank just rises up over here, just proving that we are at the bottom of the ditch. These here are Whittledean reservoirs, and it's actually a nature reserve as well, and it even comes with its own bird hide. And there's actually quite a lot of wildlife about. It's been really, really nice. We had some goldfinches just in front of the hide when we were in there, and you've got some swans and some cygnets, and flying above are common terns. Really, really nice. Had a nice rest there. It took about 15 or 20 minutes, and now carrying on. And I think we're going to stop at Portgate for a little while and have some proper lunch there, about 5 miles or so down the trail. And it looks like the weather is inbound. So random things you can see on this trail. Lovely stone, a lovely Super Nintendo as a brick, and if I go a little bit further down here, a PlayStation. That's random. So we just had to briefly follow the road again. This little section to Chollisford follows a bit of the road, then it's behind the road. But I've got an awesome view across to the Vallum, which is this massive series of earthworks on the other side of the road. And this is the most prominent they've been on the whole trek so far. Just arrived at this absolutely awesome section of earthworks. Look at the Vallum just alongside. It's what, 30 meters over there. Amazing series of earthworks. This is probably the best preserved section that we've seen so far along the entire trail yet again. It's just phenomenal how well preserved this section is. So this here is the Roman fort called Onom, and you've got a clear earthwork that runs right along the field here, and then it turns right, and you've got earthworks inside of all the buildings still visible. And just behind this pylon is Walltown Castle, which is a 13th century manor house. It's a shame we can't get a better view, but it's awesome to see. So just as we left Portgate, after having some lunch there, which was actually really nice, had a packed lunch, but we bought some hot drinks from there, which is really nice. The trail has actually diverted slightly off the original route. The original route is actually, if I turn around this way over there, the other side of this field, which is a bit of a shame. It said it goes past the Milecastle and stuff, but it said remains of on the map, but we couldn't see any trace from where we were. But on a positive note, we're going through this absolutely amazing ancient woodland, and this is probably only like the second or third woodland we've walked through on the entire trail so far, and we've got about, I want to say, 4 miles left before the end of the day, and it's only 1:30. We are making excellent time. We started about 8:15 this morning. We just left the woods and come across this, which is Milecastle 24, and on the map it shows it as remains of, but really it's just a few earthworks. I suppose there might be some walls underneath these, but sadly no information board. But really cool to actually see the site of our first Milecastle, because all the other ones are marked on the map but you can't actually see them. But really nice to see. Unfortunately, the rain has arrived again. Oh, we've only got about 3 kilometres left to go. Finally, we've got a little bit of calmer, dry weather for a second. And I just wanted to point out that across this field is the Church of St Oswald, and it was actually built on the site of a medieval building. But that one only grade 2 listed and dates, I think, the 18th or 19th century, so it's not particularly old. So this here is actually Heavenfield battle site, and it took place in 633 AD, and at that point Hadrian's Wall was potentially still intact, and it says on the information board perhaps even 20 feet high at the time, which is really, really cool. And this is also part of the St Oswald's Way, and I've been following that for about 8 or 9 miles, and that one starts, I think, at Durham and ends at the holy island of Lindisfarne. We are so excited to get to see this huge chunk of wall here, because it's been about 13 or 14 miles since heading on the wall, and we haven't seen any wall since then. So this is awesome, awesome to see, and we weren't expecting it. We just went over a stile and here it is. You can even see the line of the earthwork if you follow the wall all the way up. Absolutely awesome to see, and I know we're going to see so much more later on, but I am very, very happy to be seeing this. So something really interesting about this section of wall is not the drainage that you can see just down here, but this little corner. And from here all the way, I think, to Newcastle, the wall was this thick, and I think it's about 10 feet. But from this point all the way west, they actually made the wall a lot thinner, and it meant they can build it quicker and cheaper and still do what it was meant to do and keep out all the invaders from the north. So taking just a little detour off the route to come and check out this, and this is actually the remains of a tower, and there were 2 towers spaced evenly between every single Milecastle along the entire route, and this one is the best preserved one that we've come across so far. If I have a little lean over, might be able to see what's inside. It is just like a square, not sure what that is over in the corner, but really nice to see more of the wall and some more of the ruins here. Good morning and welcome back to the Hadrian's Wall Path. This is part 3, and we started in Chollerford, which is a small village just behind me by the bridge over there, and we're going to be doing about, I think it's 11 miles to a place called Twicebrewed, and that is right in the middle of Steel Rig, which is one of the most famous sections of Hadrian's Wall. We're actually taking a little bit of a detour at the moment to come and check out the ruins of a Roman bridge. Really excited to see it, and it seems to be just along this rather straight trackway. That's Ali and Nick way in front. Alice has done the last 2 days with me, Nick is doing the next 2 days with us before we finish it over in Cumbria. Really excited about today, because this is going to be some of the best scenery, as well as tomorrow, and some of the best ruins that we're going to see on the whole trail, so we are very excited. So we just arrived here at the ruins of the Roman bridge, and it is absolutely phenomenal. So this is the second Roman bridge that was here at Chester's Roman Fort. I believe there was a footbridge probably made out of wood or something like that, just slightly further down, and then they replaced it with a stone one that could take horse and cart. And what's incredible is some of these blocks are several tons each, I think, and they actually used a crane to crane them into place. Absolutely amazing, considering they built this in 160 AD. So we just arrived at turret 29A, which is called Black Carts, and it's actually quite an extensive ruin. It's pretty cool, and there's an information board showing exactly what it would have looked like inside. And it was built in 122 AD, so really early. And what's really interesting about these towers and the forts along here is that they were all built before the wall. So the tower, along with a small section of wall, was built first, and then the rest of the wall was built afterwards. And you can clearly see here where the original plan was the wall to be 3 meters wide, and they changed to 1.8 meters just here. So we've just reached this trig point here at 250 metres above sea level. So we've actually gained, I think, about 200 metres since Chollerford, and the views have really opened up. Check out this view north. I think, I've never been here before, but I think it could be the Cheviot Hills way over in the background. And due north of here, there's a place called Chipchase Castle, and there's actually a really good view. If you've got some binoculars or a good zoom, you can zoom right in and see it. And that's a 14th century tower with a 17th century house attached. It's a scheduled ancient monument and grade 1 listed building, and there's a little chapel next door as well. Absolutely stunning up here. So we've just arrived here at the Temple of Mithras, and there's a lovely information board showing exactly what this place would have looked like when it was built in 200 AD. Sadly, this building only lasted about 150 years before it was destroyed, and it does say that there were only a few of these temples around where people worshipped. So the temple actually sits right next to a Roman fort, which you can see the earthworks just up here behind me. And this Roman fort hasn't been excavated, and it's called what we think is Broccolitia or something like that. I'm not very good at pronouncing Latin names, but I'm very much aware that there are some better Roman forts that we can see that have been excavated further along the trail. So we finally met the point where the road veers away. We've done about 8.5 miles, I think, so far today, so it's a bit longer than I was expecting before we got to this point. I thought it was only going to be about 6 or 7, but finally, so we are heading away from the road. That's going off in that direction, and we're starting to head up on towards Steel Rig, which is going to be some of the best sections of the entire route, and the weather is holding, although I have just spotted some rather grey clouds. We're going to stop for some lunch very soon and continue our walk along over the crags. I'm so excited. So not long left the road, it is just over there behind me, and I've stopped here mainly to have lunch, but also because just down in the moorland over here there's actually the site of a ring and bailey, and they are Norman ringworks, so an old castle potentially. I can't really find any history on it, but usually they date to about the 11th or 12th century and would have generally had like a wooden palisade around, maybe a wooden tower, and its location would definitely monitor a vast section of the countryside here. So just a few hundred metres or so from the Ring and Bailey, and we've come across Grindon Turret, which is turret 34A, and it says that they had 2 turrets between every mile castle, and a Roman mile was 1.48 kilometres, so a little bit shorter than our miles, but nice information board showing exactly what this one would have looked like. And this is where things really start to get interesting, because we're starting to gain some height. The views ahead are really starting to open out, and I think when we get behind this nice big clump of trees ahead and up onto the first summit, we'll have some of the best views that we've had on the whole trail so far. So we've joined an awesome long section of wall now as it just climbs its way up to the hilltop. And I've stopped here because I'm pretty sure, if I crouch down, this thing here predates the wall, and this is actually a kist burial, and I think it's prehistoric, and it would have been lined all the way around with capstones along the top. So either the Romans found it, left it, built the wall alongside, or it's post-Roman. I can't remember exactly when it dates to, but I thought it was prehistoric. Anyway, we're going to continue along this awesome section of wall up to the summit. Just beyond that kist burial actually is Sewingshields Milecastle number 35, with another information board down here. And this one is quite unique because it didn't provide a gateway through to the frontier. It actually only had a gate on the Roman side, whereas apparently all the other ones did have gateways going through. And it was a tall outer wall all the way round, and then there were houses and stuff inside. And just over here on the floor is marked that this was a hearth, and then there was a few ovens across the way as well. This one's probably the most complete mile castle that we have come across so far. So just up there is the 325 metre summit of Sewingshields Crags, and there's some amazing sections of wall there, but I've come just into the wind a little bit because looking west from here, just down from the summit, is absolutely spectacular. Let me show you this view over here. Amazing. So we're following this awesome bit of ridge. The views are outstanding on both sides. There's bits of exposed wall as we go. It's so wonderful, and I'm pretty sure over there in the distance, I think I can see Great Dunnerfell and Crossfell. Certainly looks like there's some kind of observatory on the top of one of the peaks, and I didn't realise we were so close to it. I'll have to check it, but I'm pretty sure it is. Just up on the top of the hill here is Housesteads Roman Fort, and I believe it's owned and managed by the National Trust alongside English Heritage, but below it is actually Nagburn Gate, and it was a way through Hadrian's Wall, and I believe armies used this gate to proceed north of the wall, but there's actually a fair amount remaining. Let me go around this side and I can show you. Chuck those on the floor. You had two towers, one here, one the other side, with a nice big arch in the middle and very well defended, especially next to the fort as well. So as we're all National Trust members, we've actually nipped in to have a look at Housesteads Roman Fort, and it is incredible to have a wander around here for free. Like, so much of the fort has been excavated. There's information boards everywhere. Look, a random base of a pillar. An amazing view looking south. It's just incredible here. So we're almost at the end of today's walk, and I'm going to admit we're all really tired. I think it's about 6 o'clock. It's quite late. Nice view down to the right over there. We've got just a few more crags kind of to walk over before we get down to the car park at Steelrig. It's been such an awesome day. We've seen so much of the wall, which has been lovely. Forecast was a mixture. It was supposed to be maybe a few showers and stuff, but I've got the waterproofs on because they keep coming and going, but they only last for a minute and then they're gone. Let's say we're nearly done. A lot further than we anticipated. We're at about 13 miles now, and I thought it was going to be about 11. So it weren't not too bad. We're still okay, but we're nearly there. Just arrived at somewhere I have wanted to visit for so many years. This is Sycamore Gap, and it was made famous by, I think, the Robin Hood films, wasn't it? I'm sure it featured in there. But of course, as the name would suggest, it's a sycamore tree in the gap, and it's also surrounded by so many Roman walls. It's just incredible. Can't wait to get down and have a proper look around. So we just went over to the viewpoint at Sycamore Gap as well. We had to, as we were here. Oh, I felt like so much unnecessary energy spent, but actually it was really worth it. It was so nice to see. And this is, oh wow, Meindl Castle literally just popped out of nowhere. Look at this. Incredible. It's just such an iconic place at Sycamore Gap. So let's have a look at this awesome Meindl Castle that's down here now, before heading up again onto Steelrig. And this section is a real thigh burner after walking like 13 odd miles here. Good morning and welcome to part 4 of the Hadrian's Wall Path, and I'm here at the top of Steelrig. You can see it's just over there. The weather is far worse today. It's not stopped raining all morning, which has been pretty rubbish. Let me just get off the road because there's a car coming. We were originally planning to do about 14, I think 13 or 14 miles today and finish at a car park the other side of Birdoswald, but we're actually going to end today at Birdoswald itself, which is only 9.5 miles. And that is purely because of the rain. I think it's due to be pretty rubbish all day. Not sure if we're going to get much of a view. It's not too bad this way at the moment, and the rain is starting to ease, so fingers crossed it gets a bit better. So this trig point here is the 345 metre summit of Windshield Crags, and it's pretty windy and a bit wet up here, but there are some views. If I show you this way, there's a bit of a view down to the valley here, and a moment ago where you can see a bit of a view this way, but not much. So I'm just going to continue heading west and following the wall. There's been some nice sections of wall actually just behind us, and I think there's going to be some more later on as well. So we recently just left Caufield Country Park, which is actually a disused quarry. That was really quite cool to see. Nice lake there, a bit of wildlife about. I'm gonna sit down just for a couple of minutes. But the path seems to have changed quite a lot when you leave the country park. We're definitely a lot more flatter, just sort of nice countryside. And still evidence of Hadrian's Wall. We've got some big earthworks on the right. But if I look back, I can see the ridge that we just followed along here. Really, really awesome bit of walking, and thankfully the weather's starting to improve. Hopefully it will continue to do so. So we've just crossed over the wall there and arrived in a place called, I think it's Eiger Roman Fort, and this one hasn't been excavated at all. It's actually partially underneath the farm on my right here. But plenty of earthworks. You can see lots of earthworks here, and potentially some Roman ruins here actually. But obvious edge of the fort there, also ahead. What is this? Some archway. Potentially Roman, have no idea at all. The fact that it's fenced off and still there implies that it probably is, and the fact that we're inside a Roman fort. You can definitely make out squares on the floor of buildings and things, which is pretty cool. And actually, if you look on that side, there are some Roman walls over here, all along the edge of the fort. We're down just near Walltown Crags, which you can see runs off down that way. And actually down here we've got quite an awesome ruin of a tower, or a turret. That was turret 44B, I think, and in quite good condition right on this corner where the wall actually drops down. And apparently down there is King Arthur's Well. I'm not sure what that is. It's got it written in Old English sort of text on the Ovis map, so it's something ancient. Hopefully we'll see it on the way down there. So you can see beyond these crags here, the trail itself actually sticks to much more low-lying ground rather than up on the moors or on the hills. So it's going to be a lot easier going when we get past this section. So the rain's really come in again, which is really annoying, but we're here at Walltown Crags, and this is turret 45A, and the wall lovely alongside. It actually stops just here because there's a massive quarry, and it looks like they probably quarried this out, not knowing that Hadrian's Wall ran along the top several hundred years ago. And on the other side we were standing, you could actually see where it would have connected. But what's really interesting about this tower is the information board says that it's not universally accepted, but potentially this tower predates the wall by some significant duration, because it's a perfect location to scout this whole area and alert other Roman forts. And although all the towers were built first, this one is the clearest evidence yet that the wall butts up against it, which means the tower had to have predated the wall at some point. But we do know that they built all the towers first and the mile castles and then connected them with the walls. But there's a slight break in the weather, I think brief. Some blue sky up here, some lovely sections of wall and a bit of wind. We're heading that way. So this awesome ruin just up here is Thirlwall Castle, and it was built in the 14th century. And there's a little footpath that can take you up there, and there's an information board just by the entrance as well. So it's a really nice little place to stop at, right by the river as well. Perfect place to stop for some lunch. So we just popped out onto the road, and there's a footpath sign back there, and that's actually where we separate from the Pennine Way. We've actually been on the Pennine Way as well for probably the last 10 miles or so. It shares the same footpaths as you follow bits of Hadrian's Wall, and I think on the last video I did get a little clip showing where the Pennine Way actually separated and goes north from there. And it's actually really nice to see what a part of the upper stretch of the Pennine Way was like. And that is obviously a walk that I would really like to do. It's just a very long walk. It's like 280 odd miles. So we just left the small village of Gilsland behind, and we actually had to take a little diverted route away from one of the Mile Castles. There was a sign up saying the Mile Castle was one of the best preserved ones along the whole of Hadrian's Wall, and we're really gutted we didn't get to see it because of the footpath closure. But we've just joined this really awesome section of wall, some of it, you know, 6-7 foot high, which is really cool, really well preserved. And I think it's about half a mile from here, and we'll be at the car park at Birdoswald. So this bridge is taking us over the River Irthing, and just 100 metres or so further back there's the remains of a really awesome Roman bridge and a couple of information boards, and it's just so nice to see. Again, it would have crossed just there. I think there are 3 separate arches the picture showed, which is really cool, and this literally takes us up a little zigzagging path to Birdoswald. So we're just up at the ruins of Milecastle 49, just above the river. That was a real thigh burner, really hard work getting up there. I mean, we've done 10 miles of relatively flat, well, except the start, which was quite hilly, and then to climb uphill, quite a steep gradient. That was hard. But these ruins are really quite impressive of the Milecastle. We've got some significant walls all along here, and then an information board as well, and then yet again more wonderfully preserved remains of Hadrian's Wall itself. Good morning and welcome to part 5 of the Hadrian's Wall path, and I'm here at Birdoswald. And actually I've got a bit of a view into the fort. I can see the perimeter wall there, and then all the way at the back I think I can see one of the gates on what would be the southern side. And this Roman fort is owned and managed by English Heritage, and there is some excavated remains just over on this part. I'm not sure if you actually have to pay to go in or not, but the actual trail work goes around the edge of the Roman fort, and it's a long day today. We're going all the way to Carlisle, which is about 17 miles. So we've just arrived at turret 49B, which is Birdoswald West. And what's really quite interesting about this one is that there's no 49A, because 49A actually was positioned right in the middle of the fort, and then later on when they decided to incorporate large forts as part of Hadrian's Wall, obviously there was no room for that one, so they got rid of it, demolished it, and then built the fort there. So we've just come over this little hill here, and we've got our first view of the Lake District, which is incredible. I can see Blencathra on the left over there, and as it goes across you can see Skiddaw, and oh, it's just so lovely to see that. And that means we're so close to the end, because Carlisle is just 15 miles or so down there, and then 13 miles to the end at Bowness on Solway. This here at Piper Syke is turret 51A, and it sits right on the road, which I think was the Roman military road, and it just seems very random to be positioned right here, but Hadrian's Wall would have run off in that direction and also that way. And it says on the sign that Hadrian's Wall continues 44 kilometres to Bowness on Solway, which we've got a bit more than that to do because it doesn't follow the route exactly, but it's cool to know that it's really not far to the end. So this is Pike Hill Signal Tower, and this is one of the first buildings I think we've come across that actually seems to be built at an angle to the wall, because this actually predates Hadrian's Wall by about 30 years. The information board says that the tower overlooked the Roman road called Stangate and could signal to Roman forts nearby at Netherdenton and Castle Hill. So this is Banks East, and it's turret 52A, and again this one stood at either 2 or 3 stories high, and it says during excavations in 1927 they recovered a mason's hammer, a coin depicting the Emperor Hadrian, pottery for cooking and eating, several hearths, and a stone platform that formed the base of a ladder. So we've just come across this lovely section of wall here at Hare Hill, and it's really nice to come across a bit so high, although that was actually rebuilt in the 19th century. Most of the wall along this section was actually removed to be used as part of Lanercost Priory in the 12th and 13th century. So we left Banks just a few minutes ago and followed some field edges, and you know what, it took us to this absolutely incredible view. We're only at about 130 metres here, but I've got a view from the Pennines, which I think is Coldfell up there, round to the Lake District where I can see Helvellyn, Blencathra and Skiddaw. Round this way, I think I can see Walton Church down there, that's our next kind of stop. But the Cumbrian Coast is just over there, and then on this side of the trees I've got a view across to Scotland, easily 20 miles away. It's absolutely incredible. So we've had to take a little detour which has followed the road as the Hadrian's Wall path is diverted along here at the moment. It no longer follows the riverbank, and I think that might be because of some erosion and where the river has worn away the path so you just can't get through. So we're just crossing over the bridge in towards Walton now, and in Walton there is a little tiny tea room. And here's the river. And there's also a church, the Church of St Mary, which is Grade 2 star listed, and dates to 1869. And it was actually built on the site of a medieval church. And inside, at the base of the font, is actually a stone plinth which dates to either the 10th or 11th century, so either late Saxon or early Norman. So we've just left Walton behind, and something happened on the way through a field with cows, and no, it wasn't the cows chasing us. We bumped into a gentleman called Mark Richards, who actually wrote the official sticker-owned guidebook for Hadrian's Wall and dozens of other books that I've got at home, and I managed to grab a little photo with him. And it's just amazing because, like, I love Alfred Wainwright. I think he's an amazing author, and he actually knew him when he was younger. And he was such a lovely man. It was just amazing to meet him, and I'm absolutely buzzing. So we just stopped at Bleetarn to have some lunch, and we sat down just overlooking what I thought was going to be a lake, but actually it's all overgrown. What this was in the past was actually a Roman quarry. There's a little information board just by the gate. So once they'd extracted as much stone as they'd needed, what they believed they did was actually flooded this area and then bred fish here so they could feed the local population. We just arrived at Low Crosby now, and this is the Church of St John just behind the trees. And it dates to 1854 and is Grade 2 listed, but it was actually completely replacing an older medieval church on the site, so very similar to the church at Walton. And this one is made of a lovely red sandstone, which I think is the same material as the cathedral is made of in Carlisle. So we've just left Crosby And we've now joined the edge of the River Eden, which is just the other side of this bit of grass. And we're going to follow this for, I think, about half a mile, and then branch off towards the city centre via Linstock. And I'm hoping to see a bit of the castle there. There's a peel remaining from a castle. And there's actually some really nice views across to the Lake District from here. Got a clear view of Skiddaw and Blencathra, which are only probably 15 miles in a straight line. And I reckon we've only got about 3 or 4 miles until we get to the end of today. So just over there is Linstock Castle, and it was built as a palace for the bishops of Carlisle in the late 12th or early 13th century, and it is grade 2-star listed. So we're just walking along this cycle trail here, and in the field there seems to be a tower. I've just had a little look online, and it's possibly a dovecote, which is grade 2 listed and dates to 1835, and it literally is just in the middle of a field over here. It's really quite strange for it to be there, but pretty cool and nice to see. And I think we've got about a mile and a half, something like that, until we are then in the centre of Carlisle. So this park on the other side of the river is Rickaby Park, and it really marked our entrance into Carlisle. And we're now on the riverbank path here, which leads us right into the city centre, maybe half a mile or so, and we're there. And that would be the end of this penultimate day. One more day left, about 13 miles, and I think we might get some rain tomorrow. But fingers crossed, it's going to be a good day. Good morning and welcome to the final day, day 6 of our Hadrian's Wall Path adventure. And we're in the centre of Carlisle. In fact, we've just passed the castle keep, which is just up there behind me, that is Grade 1 listed. It's a Scheduled Age monument, and it actually dates back to the 12th century. And all around this park here, I believe, was the site of a Roman fort as well. Now we've got about 14.5 miles today, and we're ending at Bowness on Solway. So we're about 6.5 kilometres into our final day on the trail, and we're now coming into the little hamlet of Grinsdale. Now it's about a mile beyond that, there's Kirkandrews on Eden, and I think we're actually going to stop there for a little spot of lunch, as that's about a third of the way along this final day. As you can probably tell, look at all this water here. We just had a really heavy downpour, and there's meant to be several of these passing through today, which is a bit rubbish, but we've kitted up with the waterproofs. Humidity is through the roof, so it's really hot. But we've just passed Kirkandrews on Eden. We were going to stop there for a little break, but it was absolutely chucking it down, so we've continued on a bit further, and I think we're going to stop at a place called Beaumont. It's spelt Beaumont, but I think in the book it said it's pronounced Beaumont. And yeah, stop there for 20 minutes, have some snacks and a bit of lunch. This here is the Church of St Mary in Beaumont, and it's Grade 2 star listed and dates to about the 12th century. Now what's really interesting is actually built directly on the site of one of the turrets on Hadrian's Wall. It runs directly underneath the ground. And in the Norman period, they actually built a castle here. This mound that the church is on is actually a motte. And then later on, the castle was demolished and then the church was built on the same site. And it all reuses stone from Hadrian's Wall itself. We're just coming up to the village of Burgh-by-Sands, and we're actually going to dekit a little bit. It stopped raining a good 20 minutes ago and we're starting to overheat a bit, but we're almost in the village centre. And there's a lovely parish church of St Michael there, which dates to the 12th century and has a bell tower that dates to 1360. And then alongside, on the opposite side of the road, was the site of a Roman fort called Abalava. So we just left Burgh-by-Sands, it's about a mile or so behind me, and we're on this long kind of road section. You can walk just alongside if you want, but it's about 6 miles from Burgh-by-Sands all the way to Drumburgh. We've got this lovely view out to the right. It's a bit murky today, but we can still see Scotland out there. Ahead of me is the village of Drumburgh, and there is Drumburgh Castle, which was a fortified tower, and it actually dates back to the 13th century and is Grade 1 listed. It's quite a nice building to see. Around the corner from there was also a Roman fort called Congobata, and this one is quite unique, being the fact that it's the smallest of all the forts along the wall, being only 2 acres. But apparently that wasn't too much of an issue, because the fort at Bowness on Solway covered an area of 7 acres and had potentially up to 1,000 men inside. So we're almost at Port Carlisle now. You can see a spit of land just over here behind me, and that is literally a few hundred meters away from the village itself, and it is the last village until we reach the end at Bowness on Solway. And I've come over the sea wall to have a look at the expansive salt marsh here. I can see oyster catchers down here, I can hear curlews out, and I've got an awesome view across to Scotland right away over in the distance. It's absolutely amazing here. So I finally made it to Port Carlisle, and this place actually used to be called Fisher's Cross, but it changed its name when they built an 11.25 mile long canal that linked here all the way into the centre of Carlisle itself. Later on in the 1800s, the canal was actually replaced by a train line, and there's an outer dock section here that still remains. This actually connected to the mainland just over in this direction, and there was a train line that went out onto the bricks to allow goods to be taken straight into Carlisle. And then here was the station, and then apparently out that way there was even a lighthouse. What Port Carlisle also marks the final steps of this trail. There's about 1 mile left along the coast, leading us to Bowness on Solway. We've officially made it to the end of the Hadrian's Wall path. We're here at Bowness on Solway, and this little hut marks the official end of the trail. It's been 84 miles since Wallsend, 6 days of walking and one epic adventure.